Hey, it's Nick with Program Practical coming to you from my home office. I get to officially say that now because I am a full-time developer working out of my basement or the bi-level. I don't know if you technically call it a basement. Um, but yeah, so I actually got a job as a Rails developer. This is my first day of full-time work. I've been working with them part-time for a little over a month now just to make sure things were going to work out before I left my old job and switched to them full time. Very happy about it, especially with it being a new career change. I was very nervous about, am I going to fall on my face because I think I know more than I do, or how well is this going to work out? And luckily we did have that month-long part-time agreement, which, I mean, it was not fun for a month to be working 50 to 60 hours a week, but hey, that's the way it goes. Anyways, today I actually wanted to talk to you guys about contracts. So getting off the subject of actual anything like Ruby or programming wise, when you actually start looking into the career and looking at contracts. So you'll find when you go to seek employment, there'll be a couple different options. One course will be full-time employment, which is really nice. You fill out the W-4, you get W-2 at the end of the year, all that good stuff. And then there's independent contracting. This one is still fine. It's a little bit more stressful, more things you have to do. You have to pay your own taxes quarterly, and keep track and make sure you're good at saving and budgeting, and all that good stuff. So definitely, if that's something you guys are interested in, I'd recommend really getting on a strict budget now, making sure you know how to avoid dipping out of savings. So that's what this new position is. It's actually at a small startup, and investors like contractors more than they like employees. Or contractors are also cheaper. So I got a job as a contractor. Now, part of that is I decided to also look into other contracting. Since I am a contractor, you are allowed to control both your work schedule, your time, and your pay, which when it means on control pay, it usually means stuff like, being able to take on multiple clients. That way, if I lose one contract, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, of course it would be because this one contract is, a guarantee 40 hours a week contract. So it's, even if I take on other contracts, it's going to be like maybe 10 hours a week. So I started talking to one company about joining them as an independent contractor, actually doing IT work. The reason why is because I'm working out of my house now, and I want to make sure that I say both social and I don't know how to say it. I'm very much of a hermit, and I can definitely see myself not venturing out much, working from home. So I like the idea of doing IT work because it gets me out of the house, gets me in front of people. And IT work, and I don't mean this as an insult to any IT admin, but is usually, in 90% of the cases, super simple. Now, of course, there are large projects that take a lot of brain power and can get very difficult with networking. However, for me, it's a good secondary job to just to have, and but that's what I wanted to get into was independent contracting. Anyway, so I was handed a contract that by no means is acceptable, and the main reason why I wanted to do this video. Because, first off, especially, any kind of employment agreement or anything, make sure to read that contract thoroughly. If you don't understand something, there are tons of people online that will be more than happy to help you. I'm sure there is someone in your group of friends who, they may not be lawyers, but can at least understand the legal language. I think as developers, we typically are more logic-minded, so legal language isn't too hard to figure out. But I was handed an 8-page contract, which I went through and marked up everything that I found non-acceptable or questionable with varying colors of highlighter. And as you can see, I'm not going to show any details, but I've marked up a lot because it's not acceptable. Okay, and I'll talk about why. First off, the contract's overly long. 8 pages for an independent contractor is ridiculous. But the main thing I want to get into is what's on page 4. Hi, Bessie. Oh my gosh. Hi. Anyways, Great Dane, Bessie. She is deaf. Very sweet. And very much an attention hog. Anyway, so I got onto page 5, and there is a clause in here for non-solicitation and non-competition. Now, to understand, the IRS, and I actually have that document here, the IRS has a 20-factor test to determine whether or not you are an employee or a contractor. And it's all very variant. You don't have to have all 20 things, and it's all kind of a weighted scale. It's, all 20 things aren't going to apply to you, but if certain things are overly controlling, then you're an employee, not a contractor. And, because like one of them is the amount of training. Well, you may need a lot of training as an independent contractor. That doesn't make you an employee. It just means for what you're doing, it's kind of complicated. But we have stuff like, flexibility of schedule. So, the people whose hours or days of work are deducted by the company. Demands for full-time work. So full-time work gives a company control over most of a person's time, which supports their finding employment relationships. So even, if you have a contract that demands full-time, you are now like in that realm of, well, I might be an employee. Now, like I mentioned before, I'm in a programming contract that requires 40 hours a week. That's not too bad. I mean, that contract is only 2 pages. And that's it. It's like, here's the work. Here's what we expect you to do. We guarantee 40 hours a week. This is how much we're going to pay you and how we want you to report what you did for your time. And then there's the non-disclosure. That's it. So clearly I have tons of freedom outside of those 40 hours a week, which is great. I mean, and by all means, if I filled out an SS-8, which is the IRS's form to determine whether or not you're a contractor or an employee, they would more likely come back and say, no, you're a contractor. A lot of your time is being managed by this one client, but you're a contractor. And that's all fine. So the actual thing here, so the non-solicitation is not a big deal. So what's the non-solicitation? Sorry for the camera shaking. I'll try not to touch my desk. It's essentially saying that the contractor will not solicit any customers. So I will not distribute business cards for services, brochures. I will not talk about what I do as a contractor while talking to clients, which is completely fine. And frankly, it's a very scummy thing to do if I'm going on site for, this one company and saying, by the way, I do these services myself. That's very dirty. And it's one of those things where I'm kind of insulted it's even in here, because I know this company, we've had a relationship. They should know me better than that, but it was a third-party lawyer who typed up all this crap. So of course, that lawyer is just, doing his job, making sure the company is protected. I get that. But here is the details, and this is for the non-competition agreement. And I will read this one verbatim, except for, of course, cutting out all company names. So the contractor shall not, whether an officer, director, proprietor, employee, partner, investor, consultant, advisor, sales representative, agent, participate in any business or activity of any kind in the state which is competitive with the business of the hiring company or with any of their customers. The contractor will not engage in any business that involves the development, design, implementation, and operation of similar businesses, the creation of content or services, or advising sales for a comparable business. Any other business that competes with the business activities of the hiring company without written release of this agreement from the hiring company. So, I don't know if you followed along, but that's shocking. It's essentially saying that I am not allowed to do anything, even invest. You are controlling my retirement I can't do anything with any company whatsoever in my entire state, not just the town, but the entire state. The state is massive. And then, I can't do anything competitive to the company that wants to hire me, but their clients. And here's the thing. They're an IT consulting company. They do tons of things. They do software programming. They do, your normal IT stuff. I mean, typically, if you contact them with a tech-related need, they will try and accomplish it. Now, of course, they're not stupid. They won't do more than they won't bite off more than they can chew. They'll ask around, hey, does anyone feel comfortable doing this? That kind of stuff. And generally, it's not a problem. What it's saying is, in this state, I can't be a programmer. Like, this initial contract I have is for a remote position out of the state. So that's technically fine. But if I want to, like, I'm in talks with another guy about doing contracting web design work. Web design work I find is mostly easy, especially when it's just like a business website. And he needs some extra help. He has employees and stuff like that, but every now and then they get busy. So I'm like, oh yeah, I could probably do that for 10, 20 hours a week every now and then. But guess what? I can't do that anymore because, this other company offers programming. Now, I don't know if they offer web design, but they do. More than likely, this other web design company offers hosting to their customers. Well, this company who gave me this contract does hosting. Now they're a competitor. Not to mention, it mentions any of their clients. This is an IT contracting company. Their clients are in every field. Like, when I want to go invest later, like me and my wife have been talking, instead of doing like the whole 401k thing, we've talked about, actually putting our money in real estate and buying houses, renting those out, doing that kind of stuff. Well, one of the clients is a real estate person in town. So I can't even invest. I can't even buy a rental property because of this contract. Because this contract says I can't invest in things that are in competition with their clients. Essentially, it's saying, in the state of Indiana, you're not allowed to work anymore. Like, you can only work for us, period, in the state of Indiana. And that is so much control over both my time and my possible resources for new income that there is no way this is a legal contract. I mean, usually non-compete agreements are very shaky legally anyways, even for employees. And that's something you should know. You do some research, look them up, and you'll find that a lot of non-compete agreements don't hold up in court. And especially this one, because, and you might be saying, well, why? Well, the big reason why is because you have the right to pursue happiness. And, it's one of those things where a company can get mad because you left to go to the competitor, but, if they refuse to pay you what you agree is a reasonable salary, and the other company does agree to pay you a reasonable salary, most courts won't say that, well, you're not allowed to leave for a better job. You're not allowed to do that. Now, of course, you might want to review anything with lawyers. Obviously, I am not a lawyer. Every state is different. Republican states may be way more like conservative and like, well, you signed this agreement. This agreement may not be legal, but you signed it. And that's the other thing. So you're saying, well, okay, well, why don't you just sign it? If this non-compete's not legal, then it's not going to hold up in court. Well, I don't want to go to court. I mean, that's the thing, right? And then I'll get to some other stuff here in a minute. But I don't want to go to court just to prove something's not legal. If something's not right, don't sign it. You don't buy a car going, well, this car has like a problem here, here, and here. I'm going to buy it though, and then I'm going to be mad when this, and this has a problem. You don't do that. You tell them, well, this, and this has a problem. Fix that, and then I'll buy it. Same with the contract. So you don't sign a contract that you have a problem with. And that's why, I use two different colors of highlighters. So there's like this is questionable. I'm not too happy about it. I've made some notes. And then there's the orange highlighter where it's just a straight up, this has to be cut out. So yeah, that's, and in fact, that's actually one of like the major tests for the IRS is, how is your the big determining factors for the IRS, what they try and look at, and they use the 20 factor test to determine it. So they look at different control tests. So they look at your type of relationship, they look at your behavioral control and your financial control. Based on the control that the employer puts on the employee or contractor, depending on what we're talking about, will determine whether or not you are an employee or a contractor. So first off, the behavioral control is a pretty big one. So, in a behavioral test, so an employee is typically told when, where, and how to work, what tools and equipment to use, what workers to hire and assist with the work, where to purchase the supplies and services, what work must be performed by a specific individual, and what order or sequence to follow. So there's an issue, just with that, and I actually haven't got to that part of the contract. Was in this contract, it actually does say that I'm allowed to work, and there's a massive contradiction. I am allowed to work whenever and wherever I wish, as long as I'm available between Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. It's like, you can work whenever you want, but you have to work from 8 to 5. Or at least be available, which of course means that regardless of what I'm doing, I have to sit in front of my desk waiting for a phone call, or I'm not allowed to do anything. So there's 40 hours a week allocated. Like, we're not going to pay you unless you're doing something, but you have to be available to us. And then they want me to be on call 1 week out of the month, which typically isn't too bad, but that means they want me available for 87 hours per week on weeks I'm on call. So they're taking massive control of my time in a way that they don't even pay me. And of course, I could be in breach of contract if I'm not available during those times. And there's no language in this contract saying that how I schedule my unavailability. So it would be different if I could, update my Google Calendar and say, I have a lunch meeting this Wednesday, up north, about an hour or so away. I'm expecting the lunch meeting to take 2 or 3 hours, and then I got to come back. So I'm going to be gone for anywhere from 4 to 5 hours during the middle of the day, and technically I'd be breaching this contract by doing that. So I can't even have a life under this contract. Anyways, and then the next one, of course, is financial control. So who has control of your assets? Because remember, you're an independent contractor. You are running a business. In fact, one of the big issues I have with this contract is it labels my name specifically, not my contracting company. I've set up a legal company to do contracting through. If I have to carry insurance, it's my company that's insured. I'm not insured. So anyways, financial control. So the extent in which the worker has unreimbursed expenses, the extent of the worker's investment, the extent of which the worker makes services available to relevant markets. That is a big one right there. Actually, that is one of the big things on why a independent contractor agreement cannot have a non-compete agreement, is because right there in the middle of it, it's like you straight up have to be able to make your services available to the relevant markets. How the business pays the worker, and to the extent in which the worker can realize a profit or loss. One thing that I'm actually not in control of in this agreement, because this agreement has 2 different pay structures that I'm not in control of. So 1 minute I could be making as much as, let's say X amount of money, and the next one, there's a different rate that's actually half of that original value, and I have no control over that rate. I have no control of what gets assigned to me and what rate it's assigned to me at. So I don't even have the ability to control profit or loss within my own company because of this contract. I mean, it's absolutely unacceptable, and it's a response I've been working on all weekend, was actually to bring up my grievances and why I'm not happy with the contract, and try and work it out, because I think common ground can be met, because I think once I bring it up that this is, I really feel like reading through this, I'm like, this is an employee contract. Like, this is an independent contract. I swear they did a Control F and searched for employee and swapped it with independent contractor, because that's what it reads like. So some of the other red flags to look for in this, I just want to finish up for you. So there's a remedies thing. So this actually, a remedies isn't necessarily uncommon. I don't like it though. So what it is it talks about how breaches of contracts will be dealt with, which of course is a problem, like I mentioned in earlier in the section. And in section 2, it talks about how my time has to be utilized. I can't have a free life. I can't even take vacation days based on this contract. And without being at risk of breach. And breach is going to cost me a lot of money. And so what Remedies does is Remedies is kind of a BS thing where it essentially says, hey, this is how we are going to take care of breach in contracts outside the courts. And what it says is, essentially here that it's specifically talking about the non-compete and non-solicitation. And it talks about how if I breach the contract, it's really hard to say how much business you could lose from a non-compete. Like how much do you really say the business was hurt? That's a hard number to come up with. So this one just says straight up, I am liable for $25,000 in damages if I break the non-solicitation non-compete agreement. However, that's not the end, because then they still retain the right to sue. So essentially, it's one of those where if I'm in breach of agreement, I have to pay $25,000, and then they're going to sue me anyways for more money. So what they're doing is, well, we're going to sue for $25,000 because realistically, the courts aren't going to find $25,000 in damages. And with a non-compete agreement, non-solicitation, what it's saying is, if I drop off some business cards, no business was lost to the other company. Nothing was gained to my company, but I'm going to pay them $25,000 anyways, and they're going to take me to court. Where if, we went to court, I might get found, fined a few $1,000s for like legal fees and stuff like that. But, it's really hard to determine, well, how much of a financial loss did you actually take? And for me to do $25,000 in damages is ridiculous. Now, obviously, if I took away a massive client, which I am not set up to take on a massive client, so there's no way that could even happen. It's just completely ridiculous. So, and I really do warn you about the remedies in contracts. If you see one of those in there, really, fight it. Because it's one of those things where, like this one, it doesn't say that they're going to fine me $25,000 and that will be the extent of the damages. It's, you will owe us $25,000 and we will sue for more. And the problem there is, I probably didn't do $25,000 in damages, but I have to pay it because it's in the contract. So that's why that's getting cut out there, because I don't, that's BS in my opinion. And what else we got here? Of course, tax liabilities. That's one of those stupid things where it's like, well, of course I'm in charge of my liabilities. I mean, I'm a contractor. Even if I took you guys, it doesn't matter. I left that one in there because whatever, it's the lawyer trying to feel important. So yeah, and then there's a clause in here about attorney fees. Obviously, that's just kind of standard. Governing law, that was stupid. It's just saying that, this will be, this shall be interpreted and governed by the laws of the state. And it's like, wow, shocker. But whatever, like I said, and sometimes lawyers just have to feel important. And then there's a whole clause in here about termination. Like, what the heck is this? So, like, first off, on page 1, it talks about, like, the terms of the agreement. So it says, like, this contract is for an entire year. And then, I'm stuck in this contract for 2 months. At the end of the 2 months, I have an option to review. After those 2 months, I can kill the contract within a 30-day written notice. And then we will review the contract again in about a year. And then there's this whole things on termination, essentially allowing the company to fire me without notice if I fail to do like 5 different things. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, first off, I'm a contractor. This isn't an employee agreement. You don't have to terminate me. You just stop giving me work. And that's kind of like the whole problems with this agreement. It's a year-long agreement. It just needs to be an ongoing agreement. And then, just write in here that any party can cease the agreement with a 30-day notice. I don't want to be locked into a 2-month agreement, which is frankly not fair in any means before I can get out, because I don't know, maybe I'll start this contract and it's going to be absolutely awful. I mean, based on the terms of this contract, I don't have high faith that the contract's going to be a good one. And frankly, I'm not being too hopeful that the contract will work out, because I mean, if you're going to be unreasonable to send an 8-page contract like this, either you don't work with contractors, which I know they do, or so I'm going to wrap this up because we've been going on for a while now. I have a little bit to edit out, so hopefully we won't be passing the 30-minute mark. But I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I don't plan really to get too much into the soft skills of programming, although I do get a lot of those kind of questions from my friends and stuff like that. So I will probably touch on it from time to time. It's just after I got this contract, I was just like, I'm going to have to talk about it, because it's one of those where either the company just didn't think I was going to read the contract, or the company just has no idea what an independent contractor is. But just know that, when you read a contract, fully understand its full implications, because it's not uncommon for employers, to do a non-compete, and especially a non-compete like that. I have a brother-in-law who has a non-compete that he's not allowed to do anything outside of his job. Like, he's supposed to give 100% to his job. They don't allow you to work for other companies. They're allowed to do that because it's an employee, right? They have that right of control, but as a contractor, they don't. And, of course, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but, just know that even if you're not happy, even if this entire contract was legal, which it's not, even if it was, if you're not happy with it, don't sign it. Just send it back, send revisions back, and go, hey, I know this is legal, but I don't like how the amount of control this exhibits. I don't like this part or that part, or even just like maybe I like the entire thing, but I didn't like just how the termination left. Maybe I don't want a 2-month review. Maybe I want it down to a month. Great, well, just send it back and say, hey, can we move this down to a month review instead of a 2-month review? Because I'd rather not be stuck in this for 60 days if it turns sour. And that's not a bad thing to do, and frankly, it's a good precedent, because it shows that you do read things and you pay attention to things, and I don't know, that you're analytical. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Nick Aulis, and this has been another video on Program Practical. I hope to get more going along the ways, as I was off for the past 2 weeks due to actually audio issues on the computer, and then I had to buy a new computer for work, or for this new job. So but I'm back, and hopefully we'll have some new content, and yeah, thanks for watching.